Welcome back to SuperWest on Sundays, everybody. Unfortunately, our other senior writer, Stephen Villardo, is out today, but on the show is Dane Miller, who is an assistant editor and senior writer here at SuperWest Sports. You want to say a quick hello, Dane?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, and I'm Nick Bartlett. I'm a senior writer here at SuperWest Sports as well, and the two of us this week will be making up SuperWest on Sundays. So a lot of good games this week. A lot of games that I think I personally got wrong on my betting sheet, but fun to talk about. And yeah, I think we're just gonna get straight to the action this week. So looking kind of Cal-Auburn day in a big. I think Cal might have been like at least 10-point underdogs heading down south. What are your takeaways from this big win by Cal?
Well, I think it might have been one of the biggest wins in Cal's recent history. I think not really many people gave him a chance over the offseason. I was thinking that they could get this game done. But after seeing the first half of that UC Davis game in week one, I changed my mind. And then they go down there and beat Auburn pretty handily. I know it was only a 7 point game, but in reality, that was probably like a 3 or 4 touchdown win. Auburn really couldn't do anything. The Cal defense got several turnovers, a couple sacks. It seemed like they were really just handling Auburn's offense for the whole entire game, which I think is a really good sign for Cal moving forward. I think what it means is that the Bears are a contender in the ACC. I think it's a pretty wide open conference, and now with Cal's victory down there in Auburn, you have to say, Cal's got to be up there as one of the top teams in the ACC. I think they might be ranked coming out this week. We'll see the AP poll comes out here in an hour or two. They're certainly going to be receiving votes if they're not ranked in the top 25. I think Fernando Mendoza played great. They didn't do the quarterback rotation that they normally did. Chandler Rogers only got in when Fernando got hurt a little bit. And then Mendoza got back in, so I don't think the injury is too serious. It was like a knee thing. And they did all that with Jada not really having a great game, which shows the depth that Cal has. And it's a program defining win, a program changing win. It's one of those victories that can change the trajectory of their season. We talked about Cal during the offseason. The whole season was going to come down to this game against Auburn, and they beat them. And so it's a really positive development for Cal. I expect them certainly to get to 8 wins this year, if not more.
Yeah, and again, I thought Auburn was going to win this going away. I think so. The two things I think I can touch on here, I think Dane touched on a little bit, but again, Fernando Mendoza is clearly that guy. In the first half, he was absolutely dominant. In the second half, when Cal started to figure him out a little bit, he struggled. But really, it was more so he took a lot of big hits, and Auburn was playing pretty good defense. But when he needed to make plays, he did. He didn't make like any completely terribles, bar one potential drop pick six. That happens. He got lucky in that one. But again, he just feels like that guy, as everyone's been saying. I believe they call him the mayor around them parts. And it's the win cannot be understated enough, overstated enough. I mean, everyone stepped up. You got Maven Anderson at receiver. Kadarius Callaway, your backup running back, came in and had some nice handoffs. Cade Ulave potentially could have been kicked out of the game, but was an absolute beast. Their whole linebacking core was phenomenal. And then you look in the secondary, and this is what kind of impressed me most about Cal. We all talked about him in the offseason in kind of the previews, but Harris from Idaho, the transfer cornerback, he's absolutely phenomenal. Ended up getting a targeting call. I'm going to miss the first half of next week, but he's a complete baller. And I believe the safety is it. I'm not a magic mind reader here on the first names, but Woodson at safety combined with Harris at corner. That's a formidable duo. Again, with this very dangerous linebacking core, you seemingly have a talented quarterback and a superstar running back. Again, this is an ACC where now, no one really knows exactly what's going to happen. Completely unprecedented first couple 2 or 3 weeks, and yeah, Cal could do some real things here. I can't believe I'm saying that. I was not high on them in the preseason. I think I predicted them to win like 6 or 7 games. So I'm not gonna make that huge leap yet. But all of a sudden, the 8-win season's feeling it's feeling possible. It's feeling possible. I'll say that. So kudos to Cal. Huge win in a raucous environment. I know Auburn's been down, but anytime you go to the SEC and get a win, that's huge. That's big time stuff. The next game I know Dane was able to watch was Baylor-Utah. I'm a big Utah guy always, so just kind of want to hear your thoughts. I know Rising got a little dinged up. Did it look serious to you? And just general thoughts of the game.
I think the injury is moderately severe. He left the game and did not return. His fingers were taped up. That implies to me some type of dislocation and hopefully not a break. But his status, I would say, is somewhere between questionable and doubtful for this upcoming week. I don't think they have a bye. And yeah, they basically dominated Baylor until Cam Rising got hurt. And once he got hurt, the offense just fell apart completely. Isaac Wilson is the true freshman backup quarterback, and he could not move the offense at all. He wasn't very good at throwing the ball. They didn't have him throw it very much, and he's not really a consistent enough threat to run to open up lanes for the running backs. And so it was basically just handoff after handoff, and it was just completely ineffective. They did not score in the second half. And so it's a night and day Utah when they don't have Cam Rising. He's such a key part of their system. They probably would have scored 50 points against Baylor if Cam Rising had stayed in the game. And yeah, he's questionable moving forward. I thought the Utah defense played great. I think they're extremely good. They're probably better than they were last year because they were dealing with those injuries. Their linebacker core is probably the best in the Big 12, if not one of the best. Defensive line is good. Secondary, maybe that's the weakest part, but overall, that defense is really strong. And I thought they displayed that against Baylor. I mean, Baylor couldn't do a damn thing for most of the game. And the only reason Baylor got a little bit of momentum was because Rising got hurt, and the defense might have just kind of let up a little bit. I don't know. It was the second half was weird because they couldn't move the ball on offense. Utah couldn't move the ball on offense, so it was a strange game overall. I felt like Utah dominated, but in the end, it was only an 11-point win. So a lot of questions moving forward with Cam Rising's health status is basically the main takeaway from that game.
Yeah, and then one other thing I wanted to add is I think these type of wins, or it's easy to just assume you're going to win because you jump out to a big lead. But again, Kyle Whittingham finds a way again with just lesser talent. Obviously, I think Micah Bernard had over 100 yards rushing. Brant Keithy's back this year. But again, a lot of programs, not like Baylor's a scrub program, a lot of teams are going to find a way to lose that game with a backup quarterback who can't move the ball at all. And again, Kyle Whittingham just finds a way. Same way he somehow beats USC with third string Bryson Barnes last year, who's now a backup at Utah State. It just, the consistency of Kyle Whittingham, all these little details. Obviously, there's a vast difference between college football and the NFL. If you don't get that, you don't get that. They're pretty much two different sports. But it seems like at the college level, Kyle Whittingham treats it more, takes more of a professional approach in all these little things. Again, whether it's special teams, whether it's just the players, executing maybe a little bit, the formations, the routes being a little bit cleaner, all these things. Again, find a way to get a win. The cold hard truth is, I mean, if Rising doesn't come back this year, it could be pretty tough. But again, just for this week, he finds a way to get it done. And I'm just a huge supporter in what Kyle Whittingham does, particularly in the day and age where everyone just wants to run away from their problems and go to another school. He's stuck it out at Utah in multiple conferences and seemingly wins everywhere he goes. And again, people want to talk Oregon, Washington, USC. As far as I remember, Utah has two out of the last four Pac-12 championships, something like that. So never disrespect the Utes program. But again, the cold hard reality is without Rising, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough going forward. So we're going to have to, wait and see what happens there. Next game I'm going to talk about here, I'm excited about this one. WSU-Texas Tech. Send us to the Mountain West and our deal. I know Texas Tech, and I think WSU Coug fans, before you get all excited here, the one big reporting news that's really honest and cannot be overlooked is Texas Tech was without basically their star player and running back Taj Brooks. At the college level, that is a huge, huge deal. And had he been in that game, you're looking at probably a lot closer matchup in Pullman, maybe even potentially a Tech victory. I know Coug fans don't hear that. Taj Brooks is that good. So we missed a bullet. With that being said, you play who you play, and an absolute dominant performance by the Cougs against Tech. John Mateer is starting to have, obviously, got to win more games. I don't think he's nearly as talented as thrower as Gardner Minshew, but he won the student body over last night. He got excitement back in the community. He at one point rushed for over 200 yards against a Power Five team. This is like a big country boy from the South. It's not what you're expecting. You're expecting a drop back passer, and seemingly is out there juking defenders, running over people, and he is a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, if you're not the Cougs might be playing late at night, be a little bit smaller market team playing Portland State. If you haven't seen them, they have an absolutely phenomenal redshirt running back in Wayshawn Parker. Not really sure how Jake Dicker recruited him, but had like a 45, 50-yard touchdown run. And the difference between him and previous Coug running backs is when two guys dove at his feet, one at the 20, one at the 10, he had the power basically to look at him, shuck those tackles off, and finish the play. And when you that, those two combined with the wideouts and Chris Hudson, who's previously at Oregon, and Kyle Williams, who's previously at WSU. How about that one? It's has the potential to be a really, really good offense. The line held up against a Power 4 school in Tech. But I think all Cougar fans are thinking the exact same thing. We want revenge. We want to absolutely destroy UW. They took our athletic directors. When I say our, I think people know I went to WSU, speaking much differently than Dane and for SuperWest Sports. So in reality here, UW won that big Apple Cup last year. I don't think anything will ever quite come to that magnitude. So that's unfortunately the reality as a Coug fan. But they win this year. All of a sudden, you're 3-0 with wins against Tech, with wins against UW, and really looking at the remainder of your schedule, all of a sudden, if you can beat Fresno State and Boise State, things can get really, really, really cool. But as always, and as it's been since the Mike Leach era, there's those damn purple people standing in front of us. And if they beat us, all of this again, your season, it can be really, really good still, but not that next level one. So again, as we're talking about Cam Rising in Utah, I'd say the big thing here is can WSU hold this going forward and win at Seahawks Stadium, Lumen Field, whatever they want to call it now. It changes every year. And can they take down the Huskies? We don't know exactly how good UW is. They played two teams that really didn't test them in Eastern Michigan and Weber State. They weren't dominant performance by the Huskies, but they were, they're good enough. They won in blowout fashion both matchups. So Apple Cup's going to be big for actually both teams this year and should definitely prove interesting. But if you're a Coug fan, John Mateer has grabbed the hearts already. He's made it fun again. And anytime you have a quarterback rushing for 200 yards and trying to truck stick players, you just roll with it and have fun. Not really anything you'd expect. But I guess the last thought is, it might sound a little different, but I think Mateer is a better fit for WSU than Cam Ward. There's my hot take. I think Cam Ward is a superstar, maybe even the Heisman this year, and just such a smart player and just such a freaking genius on the field. But Mateer's a Coug. Mateer's a Coug. He makes mistakes, and then he runs for 200 yards. So feels like we got our guy. Hop into the next game here. I know Dane and I both randomly watched this one. I have nothing kind to say about this game, so I'm going to start with you, Dane, and that is going to be BYU and SMU.
Yeah, SMU kicked field goals all game and ended up losing by 3. BYU with a great road victory. I think that's I don't want to say program changing win, but it definitely could affect the rest of their season. I don't think many people really thought they were going to go into SMU and get the upset. They did, and so now suddenly BYU is looked at a little bit differently within the Big 12. I think they could probably win some games at home this year that maybe at the start of the season we thought they would lose. So I think certainly bowl eligibility has got to be the minimum expectation now. You got to get to 6 wins if you're BYU, and a win like that certainly helps you get there. It was an ugly game. I kind of like the Friday night games now. I know Steve isn't here to give the other side of that, but For some reason, the Friday night games seemed to be fun for me, even though that one was really boring. I mean, that was a really bad game. Let's not sugarcoat it. But you know what? It was still close. So at least it wasn't a blowout. And yeah, it was a good win for the Big 12 over the ACC. Um, and I think that's a narrative that continues to develop each week. Which conference is better, Big 12 or ACC? So it's a solid win for the Big 12. And I think moving forward, you got to feel good if you're a BYU fan, if you're a BYU coach. That's a game that you probably were not expected to win. Now that you got it, man, they got to feel like the sky's the limit up there in Provo.
Yeah, and all right. Dane said the honest part about it was ugly, and my God, was it ugly? It was. You got to do better. Both teams got to do better. I'm just going to start with that, and I'll move forward. Looking at BYU, Jake Resloff at quarterback, that's going to be basically everything for them this year. And it feels like we're doing a lot of quarterback talk this year or in this show with Rising, with Mateer, with Resloff. Sometimes it is just that simple and it's kind of built that way. And with you're looking at BYU, I'm not sure how long LJ Martin's going to be out. Is kind of their he's their number one running back. I'm not going to quite call him a star, but he's definitely a really, really phenomenal player. You're looking at Chase Roberts at wide receiver. You're looking at Lattimore at the other wide receiver. And it seems like if Reslov can just get them the ball, they should be pretty good. That still remains to be seen. This was the type of game where SMU would throw an interception, then BYU would fumble, then SMU would throw an interception, and then BYU would fumble, and then someone would trip over themselves, and eventually someone scored a touchdown and won the game. Bottom line, this is week 2. BYU did get the win. And I was thinking about this. I wanted to make fun of this game. But I know if my personal Cougars won this game, I'd be happy. So bottom line, you're looking at the Blue Cougars and BYU. We'll just call them the Cougs. Sorry, guys, for all of my BYU fans out there. But, hey, they won the game. They won a game on the road against a tough opponent. Didn't look like they were going to get it done. And, yeah, I mean, this is a team that struggled mightily last year, really never found themselves for the transition to independent to the Big 12. And maybe this is the game that kind of gives them that confidence going forward. I've always enjoyed the passion from BYU fans. I think they're an extremely passionate fan base and often overlooked and disrespected fan base. So happy for them, happy for the program. Still feel, again, Kaylani Sitake first admit to you, the team's definitely got to play better, but hell of a win for BYU, top to bottom. If you just want to say one thing. And yeah, I just really want to see them get the ball into the hands of their playmakers more. They have good playmakers in Chase Roberts, Lattimore, and LJ Martin. So they got to find a way to do that. Next game on our agenda today. This is always an emotional one for people. I'm not as invested in Dion one way or another. I see kind of some positives and some negatives in him. But Dane, you got any? It was a blowout, but what are kind of your thoughts on Colorado-Nebraska?
Well, I thought Colorado wasn't ready to play to open the game. It was a quick 3-and-out. Second pass was a drop, and just that kind of set the tone for the whole game. I think the second, or maybe it was the third Colorado possession, Shadur threw a pick six when he was backed up on his own goal line. Um, in the first half, I think Colorado gave up like 4, maybe 5 sacks. So they were just completely beat up front. They didn't have the horses to contend with Nebraska's defensive line or their scheme. I just felt like they weren't. Colorado wasn't ready to play. Nebraska came out with much more energy. I think I wasn't able to catch the second half, so I don't know what happened in the second half. Seemed like Colorado played a little bit better. I guess Shadur got hurt near the end of the game and left the game with a few minutes left. So we don't know how long he's going to be out for, or if he is going to be out for a game or not. But yeah, it just seems like they weren't ready to play from the opening snap. That environment in Nebraska looked awesome. Something like 88,000 people. They were all wearing red. The stadium was completely packed, and Colorado just wasn't ready for that. And so I think you could probably put some of it on coaching, but the roster composition is still an issue. We thought after week 1 that Colorado's offensive line was improved, but maybe that was just because they were playing the FCS opponent And so when they step up to the big leagues, facing a Big Ten team on the road, you get exposed. And when you get exposed like that, everybody's got the film about how to beat you. And so it's like a snowball rolling downhill. It's only going to get worse until you're able to fix it. I don't think Colorado can run the ball at all. And I don't think they have a commitment or really a desire to run the ball. And so you're pretty much a one-dimensional team where you're basically just hoping that your offensive line gives Shadur enough time to find an open receiver. And if those receivers are dropping balls or if they're covered or if pressure gets there and Shadur has to either scramble or throw it away, it kind of ruins the entire flow of the offense. So Colorado will win some games. I think in the Big 12 they'll be generally okay against half the teams. I don't think many teams in the Big 12 are going to have the same type of defensive line that Nebraska had. Nebraska looked pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I thought Nebraska wasn't going to be very good. I picked Colorado on the upset win there, and they just got completely embarrassed. So I really think it's probably more a reflection on Nebraska, if anything. We'll see if Colorado really is that bad, and they might be, but we don't quite know yet. I think that, but for this one, you got to give your hat off to Nebraska. I think that looked like a pretty damn good team. Last year, Colorado, got its ass kicked by Oregon and a couple other teams, and I felt like that Nebraska performance was somewhat on the level of what Oregon did to them last year. So that tells me that Nebraska is a pretty good team. Probably should be ranked in the top 25. And so whether or not, Colorado is really a bad team, maybe it's possible. I need to see another game or two before making that conclusion, but doesn't look good for Colorado after that.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing. I always, I think you probably heard me say it 2 weeks ago. Whenever, like it doesn't really matter if you like to come out here and talk all that stuff. I'm fine with it. But hey, you got smoked. Your team got whooped. You got embarrassed on a national stage. And what? Who said this last year? Didn't someone say, well, if you're gonna get us, it had to be like now. Well, that was last year, and seems like they're still getting you. You're in year two now. You need to compete. This ain't the old school day where you got to develop a team for 2, 3, 4 years. Everyone runs away from their problems. I'll say that twice and transfers and goes to another school. So you had all the opportunity to make your team better. Nebraska might be good. They're sure as hell not Georgia, and you lost by 30 points. So Dion, I mean, keep that same energy. The beautiful thing about Dion is I think he will. I think he'll remain confident. If he comes in kind of sad last week, I'm going to actually be kind of it's going to be annoying. So as long as he keeps that same energy, stays confident, keeps talking crap, but you're putting your players in tough positions because not everyone wants to beat you because of that. And you saw it. Nebraska wanted, not did they just want to beat Colorado like normal in a rivalry matchup? They wanted blood because they're tired of like flash. A lot of these Midwest programs pride themselves on humble, hardworking stuff. So when you come with flash and, superstar names, they don't just want to beat you on the field. They want to beat you personally. And when you have that kind of passion, if the opposition is able to control their emotions, again, you're putting your players in a tough position. So again, Dion, you talk all that crap. I'm putting this one on you when your team gets blown out like that. I still believe in you. Still think you're going to come back with positive energy next week. Still think you're a good coach, but talk crap, get beat. That's on you. And I guess the one kind of thing, the final kind of thing here is I always like to listen to my dad's advice on football. He's a huge NFL guy, and I also picked this game wrong this week. But I think my dad said this, and I went against his advice. Football is the ultimate team sport, is what my dad always says. And Colorado had the better stars, but Nebraska had the better team. And the better team not only won, they did it in an absolute blowout and dominant fashion. And really might have put the Cornhuskers back on the map, and that hasn't been really around since I was a child. The early '90s. Growing up in Seattle, I shouldn't say I loved, but it always caught my attention to see how many of those red people would be flying in against the Huskies, and there was always a huge contingent of people wearing red shirts, and I was too young enough to understand, like, why are they at the Seattle Stadium? But no, those Cornhuskers fans really care, and so even though it's a little bit different than SuperWest, I like seeing their program good for college football. Just a lot of history there. So, and on a positive, moving forward here, we'll keep it. Actually, you know what? Kind of love while we're going a little bit off the radar here, and I'm talking Nebraska for 4 seconds. Dane, you had some quick thoughts on Oklahoma State. Who was it? Arkansas. It's kind of a fun game this week. Just one random one.
Yeah, I've been watching Oklahoma State this season. I think I picked them to win the Big 12, and so I'm curious to see how that plays out. And so I've been watching them closely. I watched them in Week 1 against South Dakota State. Watched the whole game against Arkansas. It's a 9 a.m. kick here in Tucson, so it was the first game of the day. And yeah, it went to overtime. Oklahoma State got the job done. That's all that matters. I mean, Arkansas was pretty much dominating. Maybe not dominating, but certainly beating them pretty good. And Oklahoma State didn't give up, came back, ended up winning in overtime, almost threw the game away, but held on and got it done. A defensive stop at the end of the game made the difference. And yeah, you take the win however you can and you move on. I thought they would win by more, but 8 points is what it is, and they got the win. So they play Utah in 2 weeks, I think, and that'll be a really a great game in the Big 12. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, and then hopping back now here to kind of the Super West region. One game I wanted to touch on, particularly in the Mountain West, was San Jose State versus Air Force. I was watching some of this game, and the thing that really caught me kind of off guard was I thought San Jose State's offense was going to struggle this year without Chevin Cordero. They went right down the field, marched, had like a bunch of nice plays, and honestly, like you're just talking, I watched a lot of games, big conference, small conference games yesterday. They just passed the eye test immediately. Um, I'm not even going to try and say their head coach's last name. We'll call him Ken N for today. I will get that researched up next week, and I will have that covered. But he did just a phenomenal job defending the triple option. I know he had the experience being the head coach at Navy for a while, but Air Force was stumped. Troy Calhoun had no answer. On third and long, which they continuously would get in because they're getting stopped by the full on the first down fullback dives. They'd throw, like a curl out or a kind of like quick little out route. And that's all they really had against San Jose State. Just a complete performance. I know Air Force essentially replaced pretty much their whole offense. They have one or two returning pieces, maybe a little bit more than that. But San Jose State looked really good, and it just caught me off guard. I did not expect to see this from the Spartans this year. I personally love this. I've always felt like I like the city of San Jose. I've actually haven't spent too much time there, but for a football program that you wouldn't expect to reload that quickly, they did. They're able to move the ball on the ground. They're able to throw the ball. They're playing tough defense. They went on the road in a unique environment. You can't call it a tough environment, but certainly a unique environment at the academy. And we're able to, because it's Air Force, it wasn't a blowout, but beating Air Force even by 10 points in that style of just defensive, no one's moving the ball, they won comfortably. And very interested to see what the Spartans come with going forward. Obviously, we got Boise State, we got Fresno State, UNLV, and Air Force are really kind of the big four in the Mountain West entering the season. And now, I mean, I gotta feel like you gotta throw San Jose State in there. You go dominate Air Force, or I shouldn't, again, not dominate, but handle Air Force and make it look pretty easy. And again, Air Force absolutely no answers on offense, and that triple option attack is hard to stop. Again, I know Ken N had lots of previous experience against it, but it's one thing to have experience against it and to stop another man's system. And they did it, and they did it easily, and really provided a little bit of excitement by going right down the field the first drive of the game and scoring. So a huge win for the Spartans, and a random team to keep an eye on there. I know a lot of us in Super West and Mountain West fans probably overlooked them this year. Just keep an eye on them now. That's one win, but just it was impressive. It's thoroughly impressive. And I think the last game on our docket today is going to be Arizona versus Northern Arizona. And I think, Dane, you had a few thoughts on maybe Arizona's defense or something like that, or offense. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think Arizona has some pretty substantial issues. I think the offensive scheme and play calling is not very good. It's almost like a power running system. The plays are really slow developing. I would call like token motion. The movement pre and post snap is not really effective, and it just sort of makes the play so slow developing that it requires the offensive line to hold their blocks for so long. And Arizona doesn't really have the offensive line required to do that. And I think that just results in an ineffective offense. I don't know. Maybe they're saving something so that nothing's on film for this Kansas State game coming up on Friday, possibly. But it just looked like basically a disaster on offense. I guess Arizona didn't get a first down or a third down conversion. They went 0 for 10. I actually thought they got two, but yeah, it was 0 for 10 on third down against a FCS school. Like that, that can't happen. And then the defense played better, I think. Got at least one forced turnover, a couple sacks. So the defense played a lot better than they did against New Mexico. But man, that's just I think there's a lot of fundamental issues with Arizona. If I was an AP voter, I wouldn't put them in the top 25. There's no way this team is top five in the SuperWest region. I think Arizona State's better. Arizona State had a great win against Mississippi State. Um, Big win for them up there in Tempe. So when it comes to teams out of Arizona, I think ASU is probably the one that should be mentioned, and Arizona should just be in the back because this team is just not very good.
I, so I'm not gonna. I hear everything you're saying. I'm not gonna. It's tough. Yeah, Arizona should have performed better, but they haven't blown any games yet. So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt until they lose or if they lose. At this point, I still like the quarterback receiver combination. But again, you just got to play better. And I'm glad you did mention ASU. For the past 2 weeks, I've been trying to watch them, and obviously I was watching the Cougs. I switched over. I guess last week, switched over, got there by halftime. They're already beating Wyoming by like 700 points. And then this week, again, same thing. I took a quick peek at the score early as like 10-7, switched back, and then it was like 30-7 or something like that. I'm like, wow. So ASU clearly dominant, and again, just really surprising without Elijah Badger and Jalen Conyers. Losing those are two really, really formidable weapons. And then I think the last thing, just a quick note, everyone else in the world has probably covered this game, so we're not going to go crazy in depth on it. But I think bottom line, Oregon got the win against Boise State, and that's what they needed to do. You could analyze this game all you want. You could say this or that. For Oregon, they had to win this game. That's it, particularly after a really subpar performance against Idaho. You got anything you want to add on that? Or let's just move forward there.
Yeah, I was on Peacock, and so I didn't get to watch any of it. I think that's probably a fairly consistent theme throughout college football. If you didn't buy Peacock, you didn't watch the game. Looked like a good one, though. I mean, it took a last-second field goal. I saw some highlights on ESPN. An Oregon player returned a kick return for a touchdown and dropped the ball before crossing the end zone, like they did in that Utah game like 10 years ago. Yeah, that was a boneheaded play, but an Oregon player recovered it, so it worked out. Yeah, I think the Ducks probably looked past Boise State, maybe. I don't think they have the luxury to do that. I think Dylan Gabriel has not met expectations, and Oregon has got some pretty big question marks. If you ask me, I think USC has looked much better than them this season. So out of teams in the West and the Big Ten, you got to mention USC before you mention Oregon because a 3-point victory at home against Boise State is not it. A 10-point victory at home against Idaho is not it. So Oregon's got a lot of issues.
Yeah, 10-point victory. Yeah, no, I hear you. And then my last kind of thought before we get us out of here today is, so we've had all these transfer portals, and this is why I call it, like I've made the joke about running away from your problems, because just because you switch schools doesn't mean you're a good quarterback. You were probably a backup for a reason, particularly if you had to transfer more than once. I'm not going to hate on DJU right now because I know he's going through it. But it feels to me, just watching a lot of games, whether it was the Mountain West, whether it was the SEC, whether it was the Big Ten, whether it was the Pac-2, that just the quarterback play is just lacking nationally. It's really frustrating as someone who loves football. I've watched so many quarterbacks just throw the ball to the opposition this week, fumble for no reason, not do all the little things right. And I just think back maybe we were spoiled in the Pac-12 last year with just the best quarterback conference and just craziness. Everyone was good, but it feels like all these transfers is hurting the quality of the position. And if you can't throw a quick slant, if you can't snap the football, if you can't hand the ball off consistently, if you can't handle the noise and you can't make adjustments at the line of scrimmage, you're not ready to be a college quarterback. So stop transferring and start working on yourself. Study more. I've seen absolutely terrible play by big name guys, and I'm not going to throw them all under the bus. Even though a lot of them make really good money now, they're still kids. So I'm not going to hate on them in particular. But I saw just abysmal play across the board. And as someone who loves the sport, as someone who loves college football, I just feel we could do better. We deserve better as fans. They deserve better for themselves, and the programs deserve better because too many interceptions. Just where are you throwing? No one's there. Like throwing the ball up when you're getting half hit, when you could just take a sack and live another down. Just saw way too many of that, or way too much of that this week. So, Dan, you got any kind of final thoughts before we get up out of here?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything. I really liked what Cal did. A little bit disappointed in myself for not predicting the upset, but after I saw them in week one against UC Davis in the first half, I thought, no way. But man, they showed their depth and their quality, and you got to like what Cal's doing moving forward. So I'm happy for them, happy for their fan base. Their Twitter presence is funny. I mean, they got like a handful of burner accounts that just go wild, and it's like an echo chamber. They all reverberate around each other. So it's kind of fun to see, and they're having a field day and doing victory laps right now against Auburn. So, yeah, I always like opening Twitter, and I'm hooked into Cal Twitter. I get all those tweets on my For You page, so it's fun to see. I like it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a week for Cal fans to celebrate. That's that again, that win going down south. It's big time stuff. It's probably a little bit bigger than the national media is leading on. And again, as we both touched on earlier, in a wide open ACC, anything's possible. Doesn't mean they're going to win it, but it's now possible. That's for sure. So for Dane, I've been Nick. This has been Super West on Sundays. Thank you guys for watching as always. Like and subscribe. That's kind of important. And yeah, we always like talking football. I like watching football. So deuces, guys. Just deuces.